The clock is ticking. Quietly, relentlessly, somewhere in the distance, a better version of you is already waiting. Not in a dream, not in some far-off fantasy, but in a year that's coming fast. 2026. That version has more clarity, more strength, more peace. The only question is, will you meet them or miss them? Most people won't. They'll keep drifting, living in cycles, held back by habits they never chose and mindsets they never questioned. They'll wake up in 3 years and wonder why nothing changed. But not you, not if you stay with me through this video. Because today, you'll learn what separates those who change from those who stay the same. This isn't about hacks or hype, it's about something deeper. The daily disciplines that compound, the silent choices that shape character, the mindset shifts that few talk about, but that change everything. And by the end, you'll see exactly how to break free from the version of you that's stuck and begin walking the path toward the version that's already calling your name. 2026 is not that far away, but who you'll be when it arrives, that's still up to you. Let's find out what it takes to get there. Every great transformation starts with clarity, not vague wishes or fleeting motivation, but a clear inner vision of who you want to become. The stronger that vision, the stronger the pull. Most people drift not because they're lazy, but because they're unclear. They react to life instead of directing it. But clarity changes that. Clarity gives direction, and direction creates momentum. Think of the traits that would define you in 2026 if you stayed committed to growth. Confidence, not loud, but calm and grounded. Health, not perfect, but full of energy and vitality. Wisdom, not just from reading, but from lessons earned through action. Peace, not because life is easy, but because you're aligned with purpose. Those traits aren't out of reach. They're simply built, one choice at a time, by someone who knows what they're building toward. A powerful way to spark that clarity is to write it down, not what you want, but who you are by 2026. Not goals, but identity. Describe how that version of you thinks, acts, handles stress, speaks to others, shows up in the quiet moments when no one is watching. What kind of work ethic do they carry? What kind of people are they surrounded by? What values are non-negotiable? This isn't fantasy, it's direction. Athletes use it. Top performers in any field use it. The mind follows what it can see. When you define the person you are becoming, decisions start to make more sense. You say no to things that don't match that version. You say yes to challenges that do. It's not about perfection, it's about alignment. Most people chase motivation, but motivation is weak compared to identity. When you see yourself as a disciplined person, discipline becomes natural. When you see yourself as someone who follows through, quitting feels. It's not about pushing harder, it's about pulling from within. That's what a strong self-image does. Write it in detail. Start with the first hour of your day in 2026. What time do you wake up? How do you feel? What's your routine? Then move through the rest. Your habits, your work, your relationships. It doesn't have to be dramatic, just real, honest, clear. Small hinges swing big doors. That mental image, when nurtured daily, becomes a blueprint, and the mind begins to filter your choices through that lens. Every day you're either walking toward that version of yourself or away from it. There's no neutral ground. Most people wait for life to show them who they are, but growth starts when you decide who you're becoming and start acting like it now, even before the evidence shows up. That's how confidence grows. That's how habits stick. You're not waiting for a new version of you to magically appear. You're training your mind to follow a path only you can walk. The next few years will pass anyway, but who you'll be at the end of them, that's still being right now, today, this moment, not by chance, by choice. The person in 2026 is watching. They're not hoping for luck, they're waiting for action. Blame is easy, it asks nothing. It protects the ego, delays growth, and feeds the lie that someone else holds the keys to progress. That's why so many stay stuck. They point outward at the past, at others, at circumstances, while their future quietly slips away. But everything changes the moment blame is replaced with ownership. Nothing transforms faster than a life owned fully. When the mindset shifts from "this happened to me" to "I'm responsible for my response," Power returns, not because control suddenly appears, but because excuses disappear. Growth doesn't start with resources. It starts with responsibility. Growth-minded people don't waste time waiting for ideal conditions. They work with what they have, right where they are. They face the hard truth. Change isn't always fair, but it's always possible. Ownership is not about fault. It's about agency. The difference between people who grow and those who coast often comes down to this one principle. Those who grow take full ownership of their choices, their time, and their habits. Excuses are attractive because they're comforting, but comfort doesn't produce results. Accountability does. When life feels heavy, most people search for someone or something to unload the weight. But those who build a strong future learn to carry it differently. They don't wish it was lighter. They get stronger. And that starts with owning every part of the process. Small habits, owned. Reaction, owned. Words spoken in frustration, owned. The moment full responsibility is claimed, there's no more waiting for change. Change begins. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real, honest, willing to face what isn't working and courageous enough to fix. There's a shift that happens when excuses no longer feel satisfying. When growth starts to matter more than pride. That's when decisions sharpen. That's when energy stops leaking into blame and starts fueling action. Progress, no matter how small, begins to compound. Start with today. What is one habit that doesn't serve who you're becoming? Not what's wrong with the world, not what someone else should change, but one thing that's within reach, within control. Maybe it's how time is used. Maybe it's how stress is managed. Maybe it's the voice in the head that speaks defeat before a step is taken. Whatever it is, own it. Don't defend it. Don't justify it. Change it. This is what separates intention from transformation. Intention is hopeful. Transformation is responsive. When someone truly decides to evolve, they stop making excuses for who they are and start making moves toward who they can become. Every future breakthrough is built on a foundation of accountability. The future doesn't care about past limitations. It responds to present ownership. Every excuse dropped is a chain broken. Every step taken with responsibility is a seed planted for the version of you that's already waiting down the road. Blame delays. Ownership activates. And once that choice is made, momentum follows. Not overnight, but daily. Quietly, powerfully, and 3 years from now, someone will stand stronger, clearer, more capable, not because life got easier, but because responsibility became the rule, not the exception. Big goals often die in the space between intention and discipline. Desire alone can't carry a dream. It fades, changes, gets distracted. But daily discipline, that's what builds a bridge from where you are to where you're going. Quiet, simple, unshakable. Discipline doesn't need to be dramatic. It needs to be consistent. One small action, done daily, beats a burst of energy that burns out after a week. The future isn't shaped by what happens once in a while. It's shaped by what happens every single day, especially when no one's watching. Energy rises when there's structure. Mental clarity improves when decisions are already made in advance. The more you repeat a good habit, the less resistance shows up. What once felt like a mountain becomes routine. That's the power of discipline. It makes excellence normal. Start small, not with 10 changes, but one habit that matches the future you've already visualized. Maybe it's waking up earlier. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's turning off distractions for one focused hour. It doesn't need to impress anyone. It just needs to be done. Those early steps feel boring at first. No applause, no visible change. But behind the scenes, identity is being shaped. The person who shows up even when it's hard becomes the person who thrives when it counts. Discipline isn't just about productivity. It's about integrity. Doing what you said you'd do long after the feeling has faded. Momentum builds in silence. One disciplined day becomes two. Two becomes a week. A week becomes a new normal. And that's where confidence grows. Not from achievement, but from alignment. When actions match vision, belief gets stronger. This isn't about forcing change through willpower alone. It's about designing a path that makes success easier to reach. Place triggers in your environment. Prepare ahead. Make bad habits inconvenient. Make good ones effortless. The more you automate what's good for you, the less you have to fight for progress. There's a rhythm to discipline, a flow. One action fuels the next. A disciplined morning spills into a focused afternoon. A structured evening creates better sleep. Each part affects the others. That's why small adjustments matter. They carry forward into everything else. Discipline also creates freedom. It sounds backwards, but it's true. When life is led by impulse, time slips away. When discipline leads, space opens up. Space to grow, space to rest, space to create. Freedom isn't found in doing whatever feels good in the moment. It's built by choosing what's best over what's easy, consistent. Not every day will be perfect. That's expected. The point isn't to never slip. The point is to not stay down. Discipline isn't broken by a single bad day. It's built by getting back up with intention. The next one. Every future milestone starts with a habit practiced in silence. Show up for the little things. Honor the process. Make space in the day to build what matters. 3 years from now, that version of you isn't looking for perfection. They're looking for proof that you were willing to do the work one day at a time. Discipline delivers what motivation promised. And the best part, it's not something you need to find. It's something you build. Growth stops the moment learning stops. Skill fades. Perspective narrows. The mind drifts into autopilot. And slowly the future begins to look like the past. But those who keep learning daily, deliberately keep evolving. They don't stay stuck in old patterns, because they're constantly refreshing the way they think, act, and respond. Information alone doesn't guarantee change, but consistent exposure to new ideas opens the door to better decisions. Every book, every podcast, every thoughtful conversation, it all shapes the lens through which life is seen. And that lens determines what gets noticed, what gets dismissed, and what gets pursued. Many wait until life forces them to grow. But growth on demand is growth under pressure. It's reactive. It's rushed. The better path. Stay ahead of the curve. Learn before it's needed. Prepare before it's urgent. That's what turns chaos into clarity and obstacles into lessons. Learning doesn't require hours a day, just focused minutes. 10 pages of a book, one short article, a meaningful note written after a conversation. Small steps repeated often beat long sessions that never happen. When learning becomes a habit, insight compounds, ideas begin to connect. Old beliefs get challenged. New perspectives take root. Exposure creates opportunity. One idea leads to another. One insight sparks action. One truth heard at the right time shifts a person's entire direction. But that only happens when the mind stays open, when the commitment to learning stays strong, even when life feels busy or uncertain. Curiosity is a powerful ally. It keeps the ego in check. It keeps assumptions loose. It invites growth without shame. Those who ask better questions, who seek better answers, who are willing to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to find out. Those are the ones who keep climbing when others plateau. Knowledge alone isn't enough. Application turns knowledge into power. That's why learning should always lead to reflection. How does this apply to my life right now? Not in theory, in practice, in routine, in mindset. The real benefit of learning is not just knowing more, it's becoming more. Look at any area of life that's not improving. Often there's a lack of new input. Same thoughts, same methods, same struggles. But one new idea, applied with consistency, can break the pattern. That's how growth accelerates. Not through giant leaps, but through steady exposure to better thinking. Growth doesn't just happen in books or formal training. It happens through feedback, through challenges, through trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. Every experience becomes a teacher when viewed through the lens of learning. Committing to growth isn't about keeping up with others. It's about outgrowing the older version of yourself, step by step, thought by thought. And over time, the gap between who you were and who you're becoming begins to widen in the best way possible. The mind, once stretched, never returns to its old shape. That's why learning isn't optional if the goal is transformation. It's essential. What's learned today sets the tone for tomorrow's choices. And the version of you in 2026 is built from the insights gathered between now and then. One day, one lesson at a time. Growth happens faster in the right environment, not just physically, but mentally,
and emotionally. People shape people. Conversations shape thinking. Energy spreads, whether it builds or breaks down. No one evolves in isolation. Every step forward is either supported or slowed down by the company kept. Energy doesn't lie. Some individuals lift the room without saying much. Others drain it with every word. One group makes growth feel natural. Another makes it feel like a burden. Those subtle signals shape beliefs more than most realize. Time spent with those who strive for more will make more feel possible. Time spent with those who settle will make excuses feel reasonable. Every interaction leaves a trace. Some inspire better questions. Some reinforce bad habits. And over time, influence always wins. People rise or fall to the level of their peer group. That's not theory. It's reality. Excellence becomes normal when it's seen daily. So does mediocrity. Shifts begin with awareness. Pay attention to how conversations feel afterward. Is there more clarity or more confusion? More hope or more heaviness? The difference isn't always loud, but it's always there. Growth thrives in spaces where effort is praised. Goals are spoken out loud, and setbacks are treated as part of the journey, not as the end. Building a strong circle isn't about chasing status. It's about finding alignment. Values over popularity. Progress over comfort. Support over shallow praise. The right circle won't just cheer for results. They'll challenge process. They won't let excuses slide. They'll ask hard questions and stand close when the answers are messy. This doesn't mean cutting everyone off. It means being intentional with proximity. Limit deep influence from those who pull backwards. Increase exposure to those who stretch thinking. Sharpen focus and move with purpose. Not perfect people, real ones. Focused ones. Growth-minded ones. Sometimes those people aren't already close. That's where effort comes in. Join spaces where ambition is the baseline. Read words written by those ahead on the journey. Listen to voices that challenge assumptions. Growth-oriented individuals are not always loud, but they're consistent, and their lives reflect their value. Being around the right people does more than inspire. It holds accountable. Goals get clear when spoken out loud to someone who listens and expects action. Discipline feels lighter when shared. Confidence builds when others see greatness before it's visible. Isolation breeds doubt. Community fuels courage. And not just any community. The right one. Those who don't compete with your growth, but celebrate it. Those who ask what's next instead of why bother. Those who help you reset, not just vent. Over time, the right relationships become a mirror, not for who you've been, but for who you're becoming. They reflect potential, not just problems. They challenge comfort, not just complain about pressure. And that's when acceleration happens. Fast, deep, lasting. Growth is personal, but it's rarely private. Influence is quiet but constant. And every future level is unlocked faster when surrounded by those already climbing. The version of you in 2026 isn't just shaped by goals. It's shaped by people. Choose them with care. Stay near those who build, and you'll become one of them. Direction matters more than speed. Growth isn't just about how fast things are moving. It's about whether they're moving in the right direction. That's why progress without reflection can be dangerous. Busy doesn't always mean better. Movement doesn't always mean momentum. Without regular pause, it's easy to drift far from the path that leads to real change. Quiet time is often the most productive time. When the noise is low and the mind settles, clarity starts to speak. Questions rise. What's working? What isn't? Where is energy being wasted? What's pulling focus away from the real goal? These aren't signs of doubt. They're signs of depth. Shallow lives skip reflection. Strong ones make space for it. Success without self-checks can lead to burnout. Discipline without direction can become obsession. Reflection acts like a compass. It doesn't slow down the journey. It keeps it on course. Even 5 minutes a day, or 1 hour a week, can shift a path, fix a pattern, or uncover a blind spot. Growth doesn't fear correction. It welcomes it. Not every plan works the first time. Not every method stays effective. Life changes. Priorities shift. What made sense 6 months ago might no longer serve the goal. Those who resist reflection repeat mistakes. Those who embrace it evolve faster. Clarity doesn't always arrive during action. It often shows up after, in the pause, in the questions that surface. When there's room to think, what lesson came from that failure? What strength showed up in that challenge? What should stay? And what should go? Checking progress isn't about criticism. It's about alignment. Goals can drift without warning. Habits can become hollow if they aren't refreshed with meaning. Success can become empty if it's not tied to purpose. That's what makes reflection powerful. It recenters focus, renews intent, and restores drive. Adjustments don't mean failure. They mean flexibility. A tree that bends in the wind survives. A path that allows for course correction reaches the destination. Rigidity breaks things. Adaptability builds resilience. Great lives are built by people who review their days, not just react to them. The best performers don't wait for crisis to rethink their strategy. They make it a routine. Weekly resets, monthly check-ins, honest, quiet moments that answer one core question. Is this leading to who I want to become? Even victories need reflection. Wins without awareness can feed ego. But when wins are studied with humility, they create wisdom. What worked? Why? How can it be repeated or scaled? Reflection turns success into a system, not just a lucky break. Most people overestimate what can be achieved in a day and underestimate what reflection over time can reveal. A small shift today prevents a major course correction later. A simple journal entry this week prevents repeating the same lesson next month. Reflection fuels self-awareness. Adjustment fuels progress. Together they build a life not just full of movement, but full of meaning. The person in 2026 isn't wondering if success happened by chance. They know it came from repeated decisions to pause, reflect, adjust, and move forward sharper each time. The path has been laid out step by step, not in theory but in action, not in hype but in truth. Growth doesn't arrive wrapped in fireworks. It arrives in habits, in choices, in silence, and somewhere beyond the noise of now. A future self is quietly watching, waiting to see what you'll do next. Every insight shared here today holds a seeds of clarity, responsibility, discipline, learning, community, and reflection. Not one of these stands alone. They work together, each feeding the other, creating momentum that builds quietly but steadily. Momentum that becomes identity. Identity that becomes destiny. 2026 isn't just a date on the calendar. It's a checkpoint in the story of your life. The you standing there, 3 years wiser, stronger, and more grounded, isn't a stranger. That version is already forming in the choices made today. That version is shaped not by luck or external change, but by internal resolve. The kind of resolve that doesn't wait for motivation. It moves on values. It acts on purpose. Most people won't change, not because they can't, but because they won't slow down long enough to truly see where they're headed. Distraction is easy. Excuses feel safe, but safety never made anyone great. Discomfort does. Discipline does. Clarity does. The truth is, small steps are harder than big talk, but small steps build the foundation that lasts. Big talk fades. Small steps compound. And that's what separates those who wish from those who walk. So what happens now? Now is where choice takes over. Not dramatic, just deliberate. Maybe it starts with setting the alarm 30 minutes earlier tomorrow. Maybe it's writing one honest paragraph in a journal. Maybe it's deleting one distraction, saying yes to one growth-centered friend, saying no to one excuse that's worn out. It's welcome. None of it feels big at first. That's why so many quit. But those who win, the ones who become their future self, are the ones who show up when it feels small, who stay consistent when it feels quiet, who look back 6 months later and realize everything changed, even though nothing looked special at the start. Change isn't loud, it's earned, and it's always earned, and it's always earned in the day-to-day. Each step you take in discipline strengthens your ability to keep going. Each moment of learning makes the next challenge easier to navigate. Each time you choose ownership, You build a life that's no longer held hostage by blame. And those small wins start stacking. Day after day, choice after choice. Then suddenly, you're looking in the mirror and seeing someone different. Not just in appearance, but in posture, in presence. That's who's waiting in 2026. Not someone else, not some better version of a stranger. It's still you, just deeper, sharper, freer. So here's what matters now. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the right mood. Don't wait for the next video or the next spark of motivation. Begin now. Start small. Start simple. But start. Pull out a notebook. Write down the identity you're building. Choose one habit to match it. Set one boundary to protect it. Reach out to one person who aligns with it. Then do it again tomorrow and again the next day. Brick by brick, a life gets built. This isn't about pressure. It's about potential. There's more in you, not because something is wrong with who you are, but because something is right with who you're becoming. That version of you in 2026. They're not hoping, they're counting on you to keep going, to rise when it's hard, to stay focused when it's quiet, to keep showing up, not for perfection, but for progress. No one else can walk this path for you. No one else can live the life you were built to live. But every step you take today brings you closer to the person you already know you can be. If this message resonated with you, if it challenged you, encouraged you, or gave you clarity, don't just leave with inspiration. Leave with intent. Like this video, if it sparked something inside you, that small gesture tells us these words matter. And subscribe to our channel if you're committed to becoming the strongest, clearest, and most powerful version of yourself. We release videos just like this, grounded in truth, structured for growth, and designed for real-life transformation. We're here to walk this journey with you, quietly, consistently, one step at a time. Until next time, stay focused, stay disciplined, and never forget, the version of you in 2026 is already waiting. Now it's up to you to meet them.